The scream shattered the night, echoing across the empty street as Emma whispered, "Why didn't you defend me, Claire?" Her voice trembled, breaking into sobs as rain splashed against her trembling hands. Claire's silence pressed heavier than any insult, her eyes shifting away, unable to meet Emma's pain. Their bond, forged in childhood promises, cracked like glass under pressure. The storm blurred the city lights, but Emma's betrayal cut sharper than thunder. "You said you'd always stand by me," Emma cried, her heart pounding with disbelief. Claire clenched her fists but spoke nothing, the weight of her betrayal sinking deep. That silence screamed louder than words ever could, drowning out the rain itself. A shadow of a man, Adam, lingered across the street, torn between stepping in or watching silently. He lowered his gaze, ashamed to be witness to such collapse. The air thickened with grief, and Emma realized she was utterly alone, abandoned in the one moment she had begged for loyalty. The silence burned. Emma's voice cracked as she whispered, "We promised we'd defend each other no matter what." Memories of playground laughter and midnight secrets surged back like knives. Claire turned her head, her silence more brutal than denial. The streetlights hummed faintly as the rain drummed like cruel applause. Adam shifted his stance, but still he said nothing, letting the betrayal hang heavy in the air. Emma's heart broke as she realized silence was a choice, not weakness. She felt abandoned, as though years of trust had been traded for nothing. Her tears blurred the night, and even the rain seemed ashamed. Claire finally muttered, "It wasn't my fight," her words slicing deeper than betrayal itself. Emma staggered backward, clutching her chest, her breath ragged in disbelief. Adam's jaw tightened as guilt washed over his face, but he still refused to speak. Emma's scream was swallowed by the storm, her voice trembling with rage and sorrow. The silence that followed was suffocating, a graveyard for promises long dead. Emma gasped, "We were supposed to be sisters." Her words trembled, slicing through the roar of the rain. Claire crossed her arms, her silence more violent than anger. Adam turned his face away, shame carving into his features. The storm blurred the city, but nothing could blur the truth. Trust was dead. The rain slowed into a drizzle, but the silence grew heavier. Emma whispered, "You killed us with silence, Claire." Claire's eyes flickered with something like regret, but quickly died. Adam closed his eyes, swallowing words he would never speak. The night closed in, suffocating, leaving Emma broken in the middle of the empty street. Emma remembered the golden summer afternoon when laughter echoed in Claire's backyard, the air filled with the sweet smell of cut grass. They were kids then, barefoot, with scraped knees and tangled hair, yet their promises felt eternal. Claire grabbed her hand, squeezing it tightly, and said, "No matter what happens, I'll always defend you." Emma felt those words sink deep into her heart, as if they were carved into her very bones. The sun dipped behind the fence, painting their faces with a halo of amber light, and Emma thought nothing could break them. Years later, standing alone in her apartment, she whispered to herself, "We swore forever, but forever broke." The memory tasted like honey and ash, sweet and unbearable, a cruel reminder of what once was and what was lost. Emma's mind drifted to nights under the stars, lying on blankets in an open field where the world felt impossibly small. Claire had whispered, "Even if the whole world turns against you, I'll be right there." Emma looked up at the constellations, believing every word as if the stars themselves had sworn it true. They shared secrets only the night could hold, dreams, fears, promises of forever. Emma remembered how their laughter mixed with the chirping crickets, how the silence between them felt safe instead of heavy. But now, years later, Emma sat alone, whispering into the void. "You once swore you'd never let me fall." The words stung, because the silence that replaced them had pushed her to the ground harder than any enemy could. Emma remembered walking down the high school hallway, clutching her books while cruel whispers circled around her. Fear burned in her chest until Claire stepped forward, standing tall between Emma and the taunts. Claire's voice had been sharp, unwavering. "If they want to fight her, they'll have to fight me first." Emma's knees shook, but her heart swelled with gratitude, believing she'd never walk alone. That moment felt like proof that their bond was unbreakable. But the memory soured now, because Emma realized the girl who once defended her fiercest had become the same one who abandoned her most. In the silence of her room, she whispered, "Where did that Claire go?" Her voice cracked, but no answer came, only the echo of betrayal. Emma thought back to the night she sobbed on her bedroom floor after her first heartbreak. Claire had been the one sitting beside her, arms wrapped tightly around her shoulders, whispering, "You're stronger than the pain." The words had carried Emma through the darkness, making her believe her heart could heal. They sat surrounded by tissues and the soft hum of midnight music, their bond glowing like a lantern in the night. Emma believed then that she'd never be alone as long as Claire existed. But standing in the wreckage of betrayal, the memory burned like a cruel trick. She whispered into her empty room, "How did your embrace turn into silence?" Her chest tightened as she realized the silence had hurt more than the heartbreak ever did. The cruelest memory was the oak tree at the edge of the park, its bark scarred with the words "best friends forever." Emma remembered the sound of Claire's laughter as she carved the letters, the certainty in her voice when she said, "This promise will never fade." Emma had traced those letters for years, believing them as eternal as the tree itself. But now, standing before it, the carvings looked like a gravestone marking the death of their bond. Emma placed her trembling hand against the bark and whispered, "Forever died the moment you chose silence." Her voice cracked, her body trembling. But the truth stood unshakable. Promises carved in wood could last forever, but loyalty carved in silence could vanish overnight. Emma noticed the first cracks in Claire's eyes long before words gave them away. They sat at the cafe, steam rising from cups that had gone cold. Emma said softly, "You don't even hear me anymore." Claire forced a smile, but her phone lit up, the screen glowing with names Emma didn't know. She asked, "Who keeps calling?" Claire shrugged. "Just work," though her fingers trembled as she silenced the device. Emma's chest tightened, her coffee untouched, her voice sinking. "Tell me I'm imagining it." Claire lifted the cup to her lips, eyes clouded with secrets, and said nothing. The silence between them stretched like glass, fragile yet cutting. The clinking of spoons and hum of chatter around them made Emma feel more alone than ever, as though the world had gone on while their bond withered in plain sight. Emma stared at her glowing phone screen deep into the night, each unanswered call deepening the hollow in her chest. She whispered, "You always used to pick up." Her messages stacked endlessly, her voice cracking with desperation into voicemails that would never be heard. The city outside buzzed with life, cars rushing, neon lights flashing, but her apartment was heavy with suffocating quiet. She pressed the phone to her chest, trembling as if it could somehow bring Claire back. Her reflection in the window looked foreign, pale and broken, her eyes carrying shadows of doubt. She whispered again, "Why won't you talk to me?" And the silence answered, louder than thunder. The weight of distance between them felt unbearable, as if silence had turned into a living thing feeding on her hope. The first rumor hit Emma like poison. A friend whispered nervously, "Claire was laughing with them about you." Emma's stomach twisted, disbelief and fear colliding in her chest. She stormed into the library, her voice sharp. "What were you saying?" Claire sat surrounded by strangers who froze under Emma's gaze. Claire smirked faintly, her voice cool. "You're too sensitive." The words lodged like glass, cutting deeper than any insult. Emma's hands shook around the book she clutched, her voice faltering, "How could you?" But Claire turned her eyes back to her friends, dismissing Emma as if she were nothing. In that moment, Emma realized she wasn't just losing a friend, she was becoming a stranger in the life they had once shared. At the party, the truth grew sharper. Music thumped through the walls, glasses clinked, and laughter spun through the air. But Emma froze when she saw Claire in the corner, leaning close to strangers, whispering with a smile that wasn't meant for her. Emma's drink trembled in her hand, her heart pounding like the bass. Adam's eyes found hers across the room, his brow furrowed with unspoken warning. Emma forced a smile when Claire brushed past her, but the glance Claire gave her was colder than silence. Her voice cracked inside her. "Do you even see me anymore?" But no one heard. The party roared on, but Emma's world was collapsing in quiet, invisible cracks only she could feel. The cracks became impossible to ignore when Claire vanished without explanation. Emma stood outside Claire's apartment in the pouring rain, her phone pressed to her ear, the dial tone ringing endlessly. She whispered, "Please, just tell me what's wrong." Her umbrella lay forgotten on the ground, her hair plastered to her face, tears hidden in the storm. Adam appeared, placing a hesitant hand on her shoulder, his voice low. "Emma, you can't wait here forever." But Emma didn't move, her eyes locked on the closed door, as if it held every answer she needed. Her chest tightened as she whispered, "Something's breaking, and I can't stop it." The rain poured harder, drowning out her voice, leaving her standing in the storm of her unraveling trust. Emma's world tilted when she walked into the cafe and saw Claire's arm linked with Adam's. They leaned close, their laughter cutting like knives. Emma froze, her voice breaking. "Tell me it's not what it looks like." Claire's smile faltered, but Adam's eyes dropped to the floor, shame written across his face. The chatter of the cafe became a cruel hum, every sound sharpening her devastation. Emma's chest felt crushed, memories of promises colliding with betrayal. She whispered again, "Please, say something." Claire adjusted her grip on Adam's arm but said nothing. In that silence, Emma understood the truth. It wasn't strangers tearing her apart, it was the very people she had trusted most. Emma stormed out into the rain, her voice shaking as she demanded, "How long has this been happening?" Her soaked hair clung to her face, her fists clenched at her sides. Claire's coat tightened around her frame as she muttered nothing, her silence heavier than any confession. Adam's lips trembled as he said, "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." Emma's hands shook, betrayal pulsing in her chest like fire. Her voice cracked. "You both chose silence instead of me." The rain drenched them all, the world reduced to thunder, tears, and truths too cruel to hide. Claire finally spoke, her voice trembling with guilt. "I didn't mean to hurt you." The words were worse than silence, sharper than knives. Emma staggered back, whispering, "You promised to defend me, not destroy me." Adam stepped forward, his hand reaching out, but Emma recoiled, her tears burning hotter than fire. Her voice broke into the storm. "You were my shield, and you became my weapon." Claire's jaw tightened, but no defense came. The weight of betrayal pressed against Emma until she could barely breathe, the night air choking with broken trust. Emma's scream tore through the storm. "All those nights you swore loyalty were lies." Claire stood rigid, her lips pressed tightly as tears gathered in her eyes. Adam whispered faintly, "I never wanted this," but his words drowned in Emma's fury. Lightning split the sky, illuminating Emma's face, twisted in rage and heartbreak. Her chest heaved, sobs breaking through her fury, but her voice stayed strong. "You both chose betrayal over love," she cried, the words striking harder than thunder. Claire's silence cracked her expression, but she still refused to speak. That refusal became Emma's final proof that forever was already dead. The rain slowed, but the truth settled heavier than any storm. Emma whispered, her voice trembling, "You betrayed every version of us we could have been." Claire's eyes glistened, but she turned away, her silence damning her. Adam's lips parted, but the words refused to come. Emma's tears fell silently, but her spine straightened, her brokenness laced with strength. "This was the death of forever," she said, her voice a quiet scar. The night swallowed her grief, leaving behind only the jagged wound of betrayal. Emma knew nothing would heal the same again. The storm's roar was nothing compared to Emma's voice as she screamed, "You were supposed to be my shield, Claire." Her words cracked like lightning, slicing through the rain. Claire snapped back, her tone sharp as broken glass. "I never asked to carry your battles." Adam stepped forward, his arms raised as if to stop the collision. But Emma shoved him away, her eyes blazing. Every unspoken wound between them erupted, years of loyalty burning into rage. Emma's sobs twisted into fury, her voice shaking but fierce. "You killed me with silence," she shouted, her throat raw. The storm seemed to bow to their chaos, thunder echoing their rage as betrayal spilled into the night with no turning back. Emma's cries shook the air, her words trembling with fire. "You ended us with silence." Claire's voice broke, though she forced steel into her words. "You always needed too much." The rain beat harder, cold drops mixing with Emma's tears. Adam whispered desperately, "Please stop," but his plea drowned under the storm of voices. Emma's chest heaved as she hurled every ounce of pain she had carried, her fury tearing open the night. Claire's expression twisted, her guilt hidden behind anger, but Emma saw through it. The storm rattled windows, lightning revealing every jagged fracture in their bond. They weren't just breaking, they had already broken. Emma's voice turned ragged as she cried, "You took everything we built and set it on fire." Claire's rage finally cracked through her guilt, her voice sharp. "I wanted a life beyond your shadow." The words struck Emma harder than any storm, her knees trembling under the weight. Adam lowered his head, unable to look at either of them, his silence an admission of his own failure. Neighbors peered from windows, their faces pale, but no one dared to step outside. Emma gasped, her chest breaking under the truth. "You envied me all along." Claire flinched, her jaw tight, but she didn't deny it. The storm raged louder, echoing the collapse of a friendship that once felt eternal. Emma's scream fell into a whisper, her voice trembling. "You chose betrayal over love." Claire's silence was heavier than thunder, her fists trembling at her sides. Adam's voice cracked as he whispered, "I never wanted to hurt either of you." But his words dissolved into the storm. Emma staggered, her body breaking, lightning flashing across her face, as if the sky itself revealed her shattered heart. Her tears fell freely, her voice sharper than the storm. "This is the end of us." The words hung between them like a grave marker, final and unmovable. Claire's eyes shone with unspoken regret, but she said nothing. Her silence carved the final wound. The climax came not with more screams, but with silence heavier than any storm. Emma's chest rose and fell as her voice finally broke. "You've buried our forever." Claire lowered her gaze, unable to meet Emma's eyes. Adam reached toward Emma, but she stepped back sharply, her voice trembling. "Don't touch me." The storm slowed into drizzle, yet the devastation remained, thick and suffocating. Emma's words cut through the quiet, final and cold. "I'll never forgive you." Claire flinched as if struck. Adam froze mid-step, and the air itself seemed to mourn. Emma turned, walking into the shadows, leaving behind the ruins of trust, love, and loyalty, gone forever. The storm had ended, but Emma's world remained drowned in silence. Her shoes splashed through puddles as she walked the deserted street, the neon signs flickering dimly above her. She whispered, "I begged you to defend me, and you vanished instead." At the corner, Claire stood in the distance under the glow of a street lamp, her face pale, her lips trembling with words that never came. Adam leaned against a brick wall, his hands covering his face as though hiding from his own reflection. Emma's shoulders shook, her breath catching, but she did not stop. Her steps grew slower, heavier, each one pressing deeper into the hollow of her chest. She turned her head slightly, then whispered, "This silence is the grave you dug for us." The night swallowed her voice whole. Morning light spilled weakly through the blinds of Emma's apartment, painting stripes of pale gold across her living room. She sat curled on the couch, a blanket pulled tight around her, as if fabric alone could shield her from betrayal. Her phone glowed faintly on the table, screen filled with unanswered messages, their silence mocking her. Emma whispered, "How do I heal when the wound is silence?" Her reflection in the window stared back at her, eyes swollen, face older, carrying the weight of grief that years should have delivered, not one night. She pressed her forehead to her knees, letting tears fall freely into the fabric. Then she whispered through trembling lips, "I'll never beg for loyalty again." Her voice cracked, but her vow was final. Days later, Emma sat on a wooden bench in the park, the sky above heavy with gray clouds. Leaves scattered at her feet, brittle reminders of change. Adam stood before her, his hands shoved in his pockets, his eyes raw with regret. His voice cracked, "I'm sorry for all of it." Emma didn't look at him, her gaze fixed on the ground. Her whisper was sharp. Sorry doesn't erase betrayal. Adam's throat tightened as he admitted, I stayed silent because I was a coward. Emma finally turned, her eyes glassy but cutting. Your silence hurt almost as much as hers. Adam lowered his head, shoulders sagging as if crushed under the weight of her truth. The wind picked up, carrying her pain away, but leaving his guilt rooted to the ground. Claire appeared outside Emma's office one evening, her figure waiting in the fading sunlight. Her eyes glistened, her hands clenched nervously. I don't expect forgiveness, she said, her voice trembling. Emma froze, her jaw tightening, her reply a whisper sharp as glass. Good. Because you won't get it. Claire's tears slipped freely, her voice breaking. I lost more than you know. Emma's eyes flared with finality as she said, No, you lost me. The words struck Claire like a blade, her silence turning against her at last. Emma brushed past, her heels clicking against the pavement like hammer blows, her shoulders square with resolve. She didn't look back, and Claire didn't follow. The distance between them had become unbridgeable. Emma returned to the oak tree at the edge of the park, her fingers tracing the carved letters they had once etched together, best friends forever. The bark was rough, the words worn but still visible. Her whisper trembled. Forever was a lie. Tears slid down her cheeks, but her spine straightened, a spark of resolve beneath the grief. The oak no longer felt eternal. It felt like a gravestone marking their friendship's death. Emma pulled her hand back slowly, whispering again, You may have broken us, Claire, but you'll never break me again. The wind rustled the branches above, carrying her vow away. Emma stepped back, her shadow long against the fading light, her strength rising from the ashes of betrayal. Emma walked through the city streets at night, the drizzle soft against her skin, every step echoing louder than her heartbeat. The streetlights hummed, their glow fractured on wet pavement, painting broken reflections of a life once whole. She whispered, The friendship we buried will never rise again. Her voice cracked, but she kept moving, her shadows stretching long behind her. Each corner she turned carried ghosts of laughter, secrets and promises, now turned to ashes. The silence of the streets pressed down like a weight, yet for the first time, her tears did not feel like surrender. They felt like release. She raised her head to the dim sky, her voice steadier. I'm still standing, even if I'm broken. Her words carved into the night, fragile yet unshakable. Claire sat alone in her apartment, her face pale in the glow of a single desk lamp. In her trembling hands was the folded notebook page Emma had once decorated with carved initials and doodles of forever. Her tears dripped onto the faded ink, blurring it until the promise looked like nothing but scars. She whispered to the empty room, I destroyed the only forever I had. The silence mocked her, wrapping tighter around her chest. She thought of Emma's last words, heavy as tombstones, and felt them crush her spirit. For the first time, her silence no longer protected her. It became unbearable, her own prison. She pressed the page to her chest and sobbed, her voice cracking with regret she would carry alone forever. Adam walked the empty park path, his shoes crunching fallen leaves as the cold wind whipped around him. He stopped at the oak tree, tracing the carvings with his hand, the letters rough under his skin. His voice trembled. I was a coward who let silence ruin everything. He lowered his head, guilt pressing into his bones, realizing he had been no better than Claire. He whispered, I failed them both, his voice breaking as the words left his lips. The air around him felt heavier, as though the tree itself carried the memory of every broken vow. The park was quiet, but inside him, regret screamed loud enough to drown out the world. His silence had turned him into the betrayer he never meant to be. Emma stood before her mirror in the dim light of her apartment, her reflection weary yet steadier than before. Her face was streaked with the remnants of countless tears, but her eyes glimmered with something sharper, survival. She whispered, You may have broken me, but you will not define me. Her hand brushed her hair back slowly, deliberately, as if piecing together fragments of herself. The silence around her no longer suffocated, it was hers, reclaimed. For the first time since the betrayal, she saw not weakness in her reflection, but a woman still standing, scarred yet unbroken. Her breath steadied, her voice firmer. "I am mine again." The words filled the room with quiet strength. The night was still as Emma walked down the empty street. The drizzle finally gone, the pavement gleaming faintly under neon light. She whispered into the air, her words quiet yet piercing. "They didn't just betray me. They betrayed every version of us we could have been." Her voice lingered, echoing against the silence, leaving a scar not just on her but on the memory of everything they had once been. She didn't stop walking, her shadow stretching long across the wet ground. The city swallowed her figure, but her words remained, carved into the night like a final blow. The friendship was dead, but Emma was alive, broken, scarred, yet unshakable. The final scar was hers to carry, but it was also her strength.